My girlfriend Sophia handed me over to a psychiatric hospital for the sake of her white moonlight. There I was tormented and ultimately met a miserable death. But I never expected that after I died, she would completely lose her mind, embrace my urn, and set herself on fire in our rented room. Even more unbelievable, I was reborn and returned to the day she confessed her feelings to me. This time, I looked at her flushed face and said only one word: "Get out." Main text: "Ethan, I like you." The girl's voice was clear with a slight tremor, like a pebble thrown into a lake, sending out a small ripple at the edge of the noisy basketball court. I stood where I was, my mind completely blank. The scene before me was both familiar and strange. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the camphor tree leaves, casting mottled shadows on the ground. The air smelled of the plastic track and the boys' sweat. Not far off, the thud of a basketball hitting the court and the cheers of my brothers mingled into a vivid picture of youth. And the girl in front of me, Sophia, wore a school uniform washed almost to whiteness. The face that would later turn everyone's world upside down was now written all over with nervousness and anticipation. Her eyes shone as if filled with starlight, and her cheeks glowed with an adorable flush from shyness and excitement. The surrounding jeers grew louder. "Ethan, that's awesome. The school beauty is chasing you. Say yes. Say yes." My brother Lucas elbowed me hard and mouthed with a wink. "Why are you standing there like an idiot? Say yes already. This is Sophia." "Yeah, this is Sophia." Later, that dazzling, radiant superstar Sophia who drove countless men mad. She was also the woman who personally sent me to the psychiatric hospital, who made me suffer immeasurably, and who caused me to die in endless pain and despair. The dam of memory burst open with a roar. The drugs force-fed to me, the cold restraints, the endless electric shock treatments, and the orderly's malicious taunts and blows. Those bone-gnawing pains and humiliations felt as if they had happened just a second ago. I remember that in that hell on earth, I howled her name over and over, from pleading to cursing and finally to numbness. I also remember that after I died, my soul drifted in the air and I saw her holding my urn, locking herself in the apartment we once rented. That girl who used to be afraid, even to light the gas stove, expressionless, turned the valve and struck a match. In a towering blaze, she held my urn, laughing through her tears, murmuring over and over, "Ethan, I was wrong. Please come back. I'll take you home." Madman. She had gone mad too. How ironic. A sharp, stabbing pain came from where my heart should be. Not a hallucination, but real, physiological pain. I gasped, digging my nails deep into my palm to barely suppress the hatred and absurdity that threatened to break out of my chest. Rebirth. I actually got reborn. Back to the place where it all began. In my last life, it was here that I was moved by the light in her eyes and her all-or-nothing courage. I thought this was the start of a fairy tale, so I foolishly nodded and took her hand. I worked myself to the bone to treat her well, working 3 jobs to pay for her art school, shielding her from wind and rain, resolving every trouble for her, willingly becoming the stepping stone for her to chase her dreams. I thought she would be my whole world, until her white moonlight, the son of a famous director, Dylan, appeared. Dylan merely showed her a little favor, and she chose him without hesitation. To completely get rid of me, this stain, she and Dylan teamed up and used a forged psychiatric evaluation to send me into that hell. Ethan, seeing that I hadn't responded for a long time, the light in Sophia's eyes dimmed slightly, and a trace of barely perceptible grievance crept into her voice. The jeering around us gradually died down. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my answer. Lucas, anxious, shoved me again. I lifted my head, my gaze passing over Sophia to look at a spot not far away. There, Dylan was leaning against a tree, his hands in his pockets, a faint, amused smile on his lips as if watching a show. I saw him. I saw everything. In my past life, as a blind fool, I failed to see anything. Now I see everything clearly. This so-called brave confession was nothing more than a wager between them. A boring game about who can be the first to get this insensitive, poor student. How ridiculous. The treasure I spent my life protecting was, in others' eyes, merely the start of a game. And I was the biggest clown, kept completely in the dark. An overwhelming hatred intertwined with a bone-deep exhaustion, making it almost impossible for me to stand. I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, forcibly suppressing the emotions surging in my chest. Then I looked at Sophia, at her face written all over with innocence and expectation. In my last life, it was this very face that deceived me. Not in this life, anymore. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and, in the deathly silence that filled the room, clearly breathed a single word. Get out. It was as if the whole world had been muted. The thud of the basketball stopped. The summer cicadas fell silent, and everyone's breathing seemed to freeze. Lucas's smile froze, staring at me in disbelief as if looking at an alien. Dylan leaned against the tree, the playfulness draining from his face, his brow furrowed slightly, as if displeased by this unexpected turn of events. And Sophia, the color drained from her face in an instant, the bright light in her eyes fracturing into pieces of starlight, replaced rapidly by rising moisture. Her lips trembled. She seemed to want to say something, but not a single word came out. That tearful, abandoned look stood in sharp contrast to the image in my memory of her standing at the gate of the psychiatric hospital, watching me being dragged in with cold indifference. In my past life, seeing her like this made my heart ache and curl up. But now, I only feel utter disgust. Ethan, you must be joking, right? Lucas stammered, breaking the silence and trying to smooth things over. Sophia, he's joking with you. I'm not joking. I cut him off, my gaze like an ice pick stabbing straight at Sophia. I told you to get out. Can't you understand? A tear finally slipped from Sophia's eye, hanging on her pale cheek, making her look particularly forlorn. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. God, is Ethan crazy? That's Sophia. Did he take the wrong medicine? How could he be so disrespectful to the campus beauty? That's so hurtful. A girl even took the initiative like that. Those murmurs were like countless needles piercing the ears. But this time, their target was no longer me. It was Sophia. She probably had never suffered such humiliation. From childhood to now, she had always been treated like a princess in the palm of someone's hand. When had anyone ever scolded her like this in public? Her body began to tremble slightly, not from fear, but from extreme embarrassment and anger. Ethan. She ground her teeth, the grievance in her eyes quickly turning into shame and fury. How dare you say that about me? On what grounds? I sneered, stepping forward. She was frightened by my momentum and took a step back. On the grounds that I don't want to see your hypocritical face anymore. Does that reason suffice? My voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for everyone around to hear clearly. Hypocritical? Sophia sounded as if she'd heard the biggest joke, her tears flowing even harder. How am I hypocritical? I just like you. Is that so? I scanned the area, my gaze finally landing on Dylan, then returning to Sophia's face, the corner of my mouth curving with deeper mockery. Do you dare look into his eyes and say again that the one you like is me? My words were like a thunderclap, exploding through the crowd. Everyone's eyes followed my line of sight, and all turned in unison to Dylan under the tree. Dylan's expression instantly soured. As for Sophia, she was like a cat stepped on the tail, completely blown up. What nonsense are you spouting? I'm not close with him at all, she screamed, her voice unusually shrill from guilt. Not close. I laughed. If you weren't close, would he be here watching the show? If you weren't close, would you wager on who could be the first to win over a bookworm like me? Boom! The crowd erupted completely. What? A bet? Are you serious? That's disgusting. I knew it. Why would Sophia go for Ethan? Turns out it was for fun. Sophia's face had gone as white as paper. She waved her hands frantically, trying to explain, no, it's not like that. Don't listen to his nonsense. But at this moment, Any of her excuses sounded pale and powerless. Because no one here was a fool. When people thought about the huge gap between rich kid Dylan and poor student Ethan, and then looked at both of their reactions just now, the truth was already plain to see. I stopped looking at her, turned to Lucas, who was still in a stunned state, and said, "Let's go. Time to eat." "Huh? Oh. Lucas woke, as if from a dream, and hurried to follow my steps. When I passed by Dylan, I stopped. He looked at me with a sullen face, his eyes full of malice and warning. I met his gaze without the slightest concern and said calmly, "Stay away from me, or else I won't mind making you famous around the school." After I finished speaking, I ignored him and walked straight toward the cafeteria. Behind me came Sophia's uncontrollable sobs and the disdainful murmurs of the people around us. I knew that from today on, Sophia's pure school beauty image had cracked, and I had finally shaken off the beginning of this nightmare. Sunlight fell across me, warm. I took a deep breath. The stagnant stench that had built up in my chest for years seemed, at this moment, to finally be expelled. How wonderful. Being alive feels wonderful. In the cafeteria, Lucas scooped at the rice in his bowl, looking like he wanted to say something but held back. "Ask whatever you want." I ate calmly. In this life, being able to calmly eat a hot meal is already a luxury. Lucas put down his chopsticks, leaned over, and lowered his voice to ask, "Ethan, you really don't like Sophia? And the bet you mentioned earlier, was that for real? Do I look like I'm joking?" I shot back. Lucas scratched his head. "Not like that. The way you're just now scare me. I've never seen you so scary." I said nothing, just placed a piece of braised pork in his bowl. Lucas is my only friend. After my accident in my previous life, only he refused to believe those diagnoses, running around for me, even begging Sophia on my behalf, and ended up having his leg broken by Dylan's men. I have remembered that debt my whole life. This time around, I will never let him suffer any harm because of me again. Stay away from Sophia and Dylan from now on. I warned, they're not people we can mess with. I know, Dylan's family is rich and powerful. Lucas muttered, then spat angrily. But they're just too abusive, treating people like monkeys. That's why we need to stay even further from them. I looked at him and said seriously, "Lucas, listen to me and study hard. Only by getting out can we completely get away from here." Lucas met my stern gaze and nodded firmly. "Yeah, I'll listen to you, Ethan." The commotion on the basketball court spread through the entire campus as if it had grown wings. I became the cold-hearted heartbreaker in everyone's eyes, while Sophia became the tragic heroine who bravely pursued love only to be mercilessly trampled. Most people sympathized with her and blamed me. I couldn't care less. Fame? Can it be eaten? I still go back and forth every day between the library, the cafeteria, and the dormitory, occasionally playing ball with Lucas. My life is as calm as a stagnant pool, but that's exactly what I want. I need time to plan my future. In my last life, I spent all my energy on Sophia, neglected my studies, and missed countless opportunities. This life, I hold the script for the next decade plus. If I still can't fight for a way out for myself and my family, then my rebirth truly would have been for nothing. Bitcoin, the mobile internet wave, the rapidly developing real estate, countless hotspots swirl in my mind. I need the first pot of gold. And now, there's 1 year left until the college entrance exam. The closest opportunity one can seize is the college entrance exam. With memories and knowledge from more than a decade ahead, getting into a top university's computer science program was not difficult for me. That would be the first lever to pry open my future. However, my peaceful life did not last long. One evening a week later, I came out of the library and was blocked by Sophia at the entrance. She looked much more haggard, with faint dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, a complex flame immediately lit in her eyes. There was hatred, resentment, and a trace of stubbornness and grievance she herself hadn't even noticed. "Ethan, we need to talk." Her voice was hoarse. "We have nothing to talk about." I sidestepped her and tried to leave. "Stand still." She grabbed my arm, astonishingly strong. "You have to explain yourself." Why did you say that day what you did? Why did you slander me?" Her voice trembled with sobs, drawing the sideways glances of the classmates around us. I frowned, and a faint ache began again in my chest. I don't want any more entanglement with her. "Let go." My voice cooled. "I'm not letting go. Unless you tell me. Did someone say something to you? Do you have some misunderstanding about me?" She stared at me stubbornly, tears welling in her eyes. "I know it was my bet with Dylan that made you angry. I'm sorry. I admit I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated feelings like a joke. But Ethan, when I was preparing to confess to you, I realized I truly fell in love with you. Believe me." Her words were sincere and moving. If I were still the fool from my past life, I might really have softened and believed her. But now, I only found it laughable. Like? Her love. Was it just using me as a tool to spite Dylan? Was it sticking to me when I succeeded and kicking me away when I fell? Was it flattering a new patron and sending me to a psychiatric hospital to eliminate future trouble? That kind of love is too cheap and too vicious. Sophia. I looked at her and spoke each word slowly. Put away that pretentious act. Who you love means nothing to me. I'll say it one last time. Let go. My gaze was so cold that the hand she had on my arm couldn't help trembling. She stared at me dumbfounded, seemingly unable to understand why the boy who had been rumored a few days ago to have feelings for her had become so strange and heartless. "You, how could you become like this?" she murmured, the tears in her eyes finally breaking free. "You weren't like this before." Before. I sounded as if I'd heard a joke. Do you know the me from before? Do you know what I eat every day, what I wear, what I worry about? You know nothing. You're just lost in your fantasy of saving a poor boy, gratifying your pitiful, condescending pity. My words were like a knife, precisely piercing into her most private thoughts. Her whole body trembled, the color draining completely from her face. "No, that's not. Enough." I had lost all patience and yanked her hand away. "Don't bother me anymore. Between us, ever since you made that bet with Dylan, nothing is possible. You and him, you're the same kind." With that, I left without looking back. Behind me came her heart-wrenching cries, but I didn't turn back, not a single step. I'm afraid that if I turn my head, I won't be able to help wondering whether, the last time she sent me to the psychiatric hospital, she also left without looking back. After this unpleasant breakup, Sophia kept quiet for a while. My life finally returned to normal. I began to systematically preview and review my studies. With an adult's mind and advanced memory, the math, physics, and chemistry problems that used to give me a headache now became as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. My grades improved by leaps and bounds. In one monthly exam, I shot from the middle of the grade straight into the top 10. This result stunned all the teachers and students, including Lucas. "Ethan, what kind of miracle pill did you take? This rate of improvement is way too exaggerated." He held the report card, his mouth open wide enough to fit an egg. I just smiled. "I told you to study properly. Only I know that this is just the beginning. My goal is to be the provincial top scorer. I will enter the best university in the country in the most dazzling manner and begin my brand new life." My rapid rise in rank made me the school's new rising star. Before, when people mentioned Ethan, the impression was that poor student, Sophia's rumored boyfriend. Now they would say that academic god. People's attitudes are just that pragmatic. I began to receive love letters secretly handed to me by some girls, and walking down the street, I could feel gazes of attention coming from all directions. But none of it could stir the slightest ripple in my heart. My heart had already died in that cold hospital room in my past life. In this life, I don't want to touch anything related to feelings again. But the tree wishes to stand still while the wind will not cease. My rise seems to have provoked certain people. One afternoon, I was called to the office by the homeroom teacher. In the office, besides the homeroom teacher, there was an unexpected person, Dylan. He sat leisurely on the sofa, and when he saw me come in, a provocative smile curled at the corner of his mouth. The homeroom teacher looked very grim. He cleared his throat and said to me, "Ethan, I called you here because there's something I want to verify with you. A cold feeling sank in my heart. A bad premonition. Teacher, please tell me. The homeroom teacher hesitated, picked up a document from the desk, and said, the school recently received a report saying that you were involved in cheating during an exam. Cheating? I understood instantly. This was Dylan's tactic. I looked at Dylan. The smile on his face became even more smug. Teacher, I didn't cheat, I replied calmly. But your grades improved so quickly, it's a bit abnormal, the homeroom teacher said, frowning. Also, someone saw you hand in your math exam half an hour early. Exactly, teacher, Dylan said lazily. Who can finish that fast if they're normal? Unless they knew the answers in advance. Our school's reputation can't be ruined by people like that. He kept calling me people like that, full of contempt. I ignored him and said to the homeroom teacher, Teacher, whether I cheated is simple. You can give me any one of the high-difficulty test papers right now, and I'll do it on the spot. If I can't do it, I'll admit to cheating and accept any punishment. My calmness and confidence surprised the homeroom teacher. He glanced at Dylan, then at me, and finally nodded. All right, I'll believe you this once. He pulled a math Olympiad mock exam out of a stack of spare test papers. There are 5 long questions here. If you can correctly solve 3 of them within an hour, I'll believe you. All the teachers in the office turned their attention toward us. They knew exactly how difficult this test paper was. Don't talk about solving 3 problems in an hour. Even if they were given a whole day, being able to fully solve one would be impressive. Dylan even wore an expression of assured victory. To him, I was merely putting on a bluff, a dying struggle. I picked up my pen and glanced at the problems. They were indeed very difficult. But for me, they were not without solution. These types of problems appeared in the various fields I later explored to pass the time, and I had seen similar methods of solving them. I gathered my focus, and my mind began to race. Formulas, theorems, and logical deductions intertwined and collided in my head. The tip of my pen raced across the scratch paper, producing a rustling sound. Only my writing and everyone's breathing remained in the entire office. Dylan's expression shifted from initial contempt to astonishment, then to disbelief. Because he saw that I hardly paused, writing out the complete problem-solving steps one after another. Time passed, minute by minute. In less than 40 minutes, I put down my pen. Teacher, I've finished. I handed the answer sheet to the homeroom teacher. The math teacher also came over, and the two of them bent down to review it together. Their expressions shifted from surprise to shock, and finally to ecstatic joy. All correct. 5 questions. All correct, the math teacher shouted excitedly, his voice trembling. The solution is so clever. My God, this is a genius. The homeroom teacher was also flushed with excitement. He grabbed my shoulder. Ethan, well done. I was wrong about you. A chorus of exclamations and praise rose in the office. I calmly looked at Dylan, whose face had already turned a deep liver color, and said lightly, Now, do you have anything else to say? Dylan's lips moved, but he couldn't utter a single word, no matter how he thought about it. He couldn't understand how a bookish pauper in his eyes could possibly possess such terrifying strength. This time he tried to step on me, but instead became the stepping stone for me to ascend a shrine. His face burned with a searing pain. As for the person who reported me, I paused, my gaze sweeping over Dylan. I think the school should investigate this thoroughly. How to deal with such malicious slander and actions that damage a classmate's reputation. The homeroom teacher immediately understood, looking sternly at Dylan. Dylan, you need to give me an explanation for this. Dylan climbed to his feet in embarrassment and, under the scornful stares of everyone, slunk out of the office. I know this is only the beginning. The grudge between him and me was now completely set. After the cheating scandal, my status at school changed completely. I was no longer the academic god people talked about, but a great god. The teachers treated me like a treasure, giving me the green light all the way and funneling all kinds of competition resources to me. My classmates' looks toward me shifted from simple admiration to reverence. I reveled in this respect that came purely from my strength. This is much more solid than the vanity I gained from riding on Sophia's halo in my previous life. And Sophia also seemed to have completely given up. I would occasionally run into her on campus. She was always walking with Dylan. Only, the way she looked at me grew increasingly complicated. Inside it was resentment, confusion, jealousy, and even a trace of regret she herself hadn't noticed. She probably couldn't understand how the stone she discarded could in an instant become the diamond she had to look up to. And Dylan, the one she chose, in front of me behaved like a buffoon, repeatedly humiliating himself. That tremendous gap was enough to shatter her pitiable pride. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. There was no longer any place for her in my world. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was the university entrance exam. I walked into the examination hall with absolute confidence and walked out with absolute calm. The day the results were released, the entire Jing City was in an uproar. With a score just 1 point shy of full marks, I became the provincial top scholar. Countless reporters swarmed in, surrounding my family's shabby little building so tightly there was no way through. Under the flashbulbs, I watched my parents, their faces streaked with tears of excitement, and felt a flood of conflicting emotions. Last life, I disappointed them for an entire lifetime. This life, I finally made them proud once. Classmate Ethan, as the top scorer, do you have anything you'd like to say? Classmate Ethan, people call you the god of comebacks. Do you have any study tips you can share? The reporter's questions came one after another. I faced the camera and said calmly, I don't have any secrets. I just want to tell everyone that knowledge can really change your fate. Also, I want to thank my parents and my friend Lucas. In front of their TVs, countless people watched this part of my interview, including Sophia. Later, I heard that day, she locked herself in her room and cried for an entire day. As for Dylan, he failed the college entrance exams and didn't even reach the cutoff for first-tier schools. His father, Mr. Parker, paid a large sum to get him into a third-rate art college. From that moment on, our lives headed in completely different directions. College life was even more exciting than I had imagined. I chose the computer science department at the country's best university. Here, I thrived. I used my spare time to start putting into practice the business blueprints in my head. I decisively bought Bitcoin when it was still just a pile of overlooked code, using the US dollar scholarship for my university entrance exam and a bit of money borrowed from my parents. Then I formed a small team and began developing a mobile app. It was a brand new foreign social app, and at the time its concept seemed very forward-thinking. Lucas had also gotten into a good finance and economics university in the same city as me. Whenever he had free time, he came over to help. Ethan, the stuff you're doing, will it work? He looked at the lines of code on my computer, his face full of doubt. It will, I said confidently, because I knew that in a few years, the wave of mobile internet would sweep everything away. And what I had to do was stand at the crest of that wave. In my sophomore year, my social app officially launched. At first, the response was lukewarm. I wasn't anxious. I knew it needed a trigger to explode. While I improved the product, I continued my studies. Thanks to my outstanding professional abilities, I was noticed by a top professor in the field and joined his lab to take part in a national-level project. My life was step by step, moving steadily forward according to the blueprint I had planned. Meanwhile, Sophia was also following her own life path. With her exceptional looks, she was admitted to the Film Academy. With the help of Dylan's father, the famous director Mr. Parker, she began to play small roles in some TV dramas. She was very talented and very driven. Gradually, she began to gain some fame. We were like two parallel lines that would never meet, each rushing toward our own future. I thought we would never cross paths again in this life. Until that day. It was a weekend. I was debugging code in the lab when I received a call from an unknown number. Hello, is this Ethan? The voice on the other end sounded a little urgent. Yes, this is he. May I ask who is calling? I'm Emma, Sophia's roommate. Sophia, she had an accident. My heart suddenly clenched. It wasn't out of concern, but an instinctive aversion to trouble. What's wrong with her? She went with Dylan to a drinking party, and it seemed she was chased by an investor named Michael. Dylan himself got scared off and left her alone at the Maple Forest Hotel. Go save her. Her phone. Your name is still listed as the emergency contact. Emma's voice was tearful. I hung up the phone and was silent for a few seconds. Save her? Why should that be? In my last life, when I was locked in a psychiatric hospital and called out in despair, who came to save me? Now she's in trouble. Why should I go rescue her? Just because her phone has my name saved? How ridiculous. I turned off my phone, tossed all my thoughts aside, and refocused my attention on the code before me. I typed one character after another on the keyboard. But for some reason, my heart was in turmoil. Images kept flashing before my eyes of the last life. Her holding my urn, her face wet with tears in the firelight. Ethan, I was wrong. Will you come back? You're so annoying. I slammed my hand on the table and stood up. The other students in the lab were all startled and turned to look at me. I took a deep breath, said sorry to them, then grabbed my coat and dashed out of the lab. I ran while cursing myself in my mind. Ethan, you are such a scumbag. She treated you that way, and you still worry about whether she lives or dies. But I stopped, leaned against the wall, and panted. I wasn't trying to save her. I just didn't want to see the same ending as in my last life again. Whether she died clutching my urn, or I watched her plummet into the abyss with my own eyes. We haven't settled this score yet. What she owes me, I want her to pay back awake with an entire lifetime. Not to have it all wiped clean in this way. I took out my phone, powered it back on, and, following the address her roommate had sent, hailed a taxi for the Maple Grove Hotel. When I kicked open the private room door, the scene I saw made my blood boil. A bloated, middle-aged man, Michael, was pinning Sophia to the sofa, ripping at her clothes. Sophia struggled desperately and screamed, her voice hoarse, her face streaked with tears and terror. In that moment, it was as if I saw my helpless, despairing self from the last life in the psychiatric hospital. A nameless fury shot up from the soles of my feet straight to the crown of my head. Let her go. I rushed over and kicked that man, sending him sprawling to the ground. The man hadn't expected someone to burst in. He was stunned for a moment, then flew into a rage. Who the hell are you? How dare you meddle in my business? I'm her father. I let out a roar, grabbed the wine bottle on the table, and hurled it at his head. Bang! The bottle shattered, and blood ran down his forehead. The man screamed in agony, clutched his head, and fell to the ground. The private room fell into a deathly silence. Sophia curled up in the corner of the sofa, tightly wrapped in torn clothes, looking at me with eyes full of shock and disbelief. She probably never expected that the one who came to save her would actually be me. I took off my coat and threw it over her, my voice cold without a trace of warmth. Put on. Get out. After speaking, I took out my phone and dialed the police. Hello, is this the police? This is the Maple Grove Hotel. People are gathering to do drugs, and there's an attempted rape. After doing all this, I turned and walked away, not looking back at her even once. I didn't want any further connection with her. Tonight, consider it payment for what I owed her in my past life, fully settled. From now on, we owe each other nothing. I thought this matter would end there. But unexpectedly, it sparked a huge uproar. The investor, Michael, whose head I opened, was taken away by the police for drug use and attempted rape, his reputation destroyed. And this matter was exposed online. At first, public opinion condemned that investor Michael and Dylan, who fled at the last moment. But soon, the tide turned. Someone dug up the high school past between me, Sophia, and Dylan. The headline, Top Scorer Smashes Investor for Love, Rescues Former Campus Belle Girlfriend, instantly exploded across the internet. My image as the lovesick genius who flew into a rage for love contrasted sharply with Dylan's scumbag persona of cowardly, useless, selling out his girlfriend. Coupled with the old story of me rejecting Sophia and then becoming the top scorer in the exams. A classic comeback script. Countless netizens imagine a melodrama of a devoted genius betrayed, who years later still forgives and heroically rescues the beauty. A tragic love saga. Sophia's and my names together shot to the top of the trending list. My social app also saw its user count surge by millions overnight because of this incident. The servers crashed several times. My team and I worked through the night to maintain them. Lucas watched the rapidly rising numbers with a thrilled look. Ethan, we're trending. Totally trending. But I couldn't smile. This kind of fame was not what I wanted. It once again tied my name to Sophia's, tightly and permanently. Sure enough, it didn't take long before Sophia came. She found my school, my laboratory. She stood in front of me, wearing a simple dress, her complexion pale, eyes swollen and red, looking pitiably fragile. "Ethan," she said hoarsely, "thank you. No need." I kept my head down and continued typing code. "I'm not doing it for you." "I know." She bit her lip and said softly, "I know you still hate me." I paused my typing, looked up, and stared at her. "Hate? Sophia, you think too highly of yourself. To me, you're nothing more than an irrelevant stranger. Saving you was just to avoid having another stain on my record for standing by and doing nothing." My words were cruel, like a knife. Her complexion grew several shades paler, her body staggering. "I'm sorry." Tears streamed down her face. "I know, it's too late for anything I say. What happened in high school was my fault. I was deceived by Dylan. I regret it. Ethan, I really regret it." "Regret?" "Regret again. In my past life, she held my urn and said she was sorry. In this life, she stands in front of me again and says she regrets it. How much is her regret actually worth? Your regret means nothing to me." I stood up, ready to leave. "If you really feel sorry, then please don't ever appear in my world again. We should have been done with each other a long time ago." "No." She suddenly grew agitated and grabbed me. "Not clear. How could we ever be even?" She looked up at me, tearful, her eyes full of crazed paranoia. "Ethan, I know you have feelings for me. It's not that you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to save me that night. You still have me in your heart, don't you?" I looked at her face, distorted by emotion, and felt only absurdity. "Are you crazy?" "Yes, I am crazy." She laughed, and as she laughed, she began to cry. "Since the day you rejected me on the basketball court, I've been crazy. I watched you become better and more dazzling, watched you drift further away from me, and I nearly went mad. I'm jealous. I won't accept it. You were supposed to be mine. I was the one who lost you." She babbled incoherently, her emotions on the verge of collapse. I ripped my hand free from hers and looked at her coldly. "Sophia, you don't love me. You're just unwilling to accept it. Unwilling to see the trash you discarded suddenly become a treasure others fight over. The only one you've ever loved is yourself." My words struck her weak spot once again. She froze where she stood, as if every ounce of strength had been drained away. I ignored her and turned to leave. I thought my words had been harsh enough to make her give up, but I underestimated her obsession. Or rather, I underestimated how tormenting not being able to have something can be for someone. From that day on, Sophia began to pursue me relentlessly. She, just like in my previous life when I courted her, brought me breakfast every day, waiting under the building of my lab for hours on end, come rain or shine. Using her fame, she openly expressed her love and remorse for me at all kinds of public events without any hesitation. She even announced that she could give up her acting career for me. She fashioned herself into the image of a lovesick woman who returned for love, moving countless netizens. Everyone thought we were a match made in heaven and kept telling me till a prodigal son returns, urging me to give her another chance. Even Lucas couldn't help wavering. "Ethan, what if, she just looked kind of pitiful." Pitiful? I just felt a chill run down my spine. How similar this was to the scene from my previous life, right before she sent me to the psychiatric hospital. Only this time, the roles of perpetrator and victim were reversed. She used public opinion and morality to weave a huge web around me, trying to trap me inside it and force me into submission. She thought that by doing this, she could make up for her wrongs and make us mend the broken mirror back together. She was far too naive. A shattered mirror. How could it ever become whole again? Even if you glue it back together, all that would remain are cracks across its surface. My company, Johnson Technology, because of this wave of gossip-driven traffic, received unprecedented attention and soon secured our first angel investment. The company entered the fast lane. I grew increasingly busy, so busy that I had no time to deal with Sophia's entanglements. My indifference and disregard drove her even crazier. Finally, on a rainy night, she blocked the entrance under my office again. She was soaked through, shivering from the cold, looking both miserable and pitiable. "Ethan, talk to me just once, please," she pleaded. I walked past her without looking away. "Ethan," she clung to me from behind. "Why won't you forgive me? I've done everything I can for you. What more do you want from me? I want you dead." I stopped walking, didn't turn around, and spat out the 3 words coldly. Her body went stiff the moment she held me. I could feel her body temperature slowly growing colder. I pried her fingers apart, turned around, and looked at her face, pale as a ghost. "Aren't you the one who wanted to know why I hate you so much?" I leaned close to her ear and, in a voice that only the two of us could hear, articulated each word slowly and deliberately. "Because in my last life, it was you who personally sent me to the psychiatric hospital. Inside, I was given electroshock, pumped full of drugs, and in the end, I died from the pain. Tell me, should I hate you or not?" Boom! A bolt of lightning tore across the night sky, illuminating her face, which in an instant had lost all color. Her pupils contracted sharply, and her body trembled like a leaf in the wind. What did you say?" Her voice shook out of control. "What? Last life? Can't remember?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth, giving a cruel smile. "It's okay. This life, I'll make you remember slowly. I'll make you watch me rise to a height you'll never reach. I'll make you live a lifetime of regret and pain. This is what you owe me." After speaking, I stopped looking at her, opened my umbrella, and walked into the curtain of rain. Behind me came a piercing, inhuman scream. Then there came the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. I didn't look back. "Sophia, the game has only just begun. This lifetime, let me be your nightmare." Easter egg. Years later, the Johnson Tech empire I founded had become a global giant, and my name came to represent an era. And Sophia, after that rainy night, truly went mad. She was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Ironically, the same one I had stayed in my previous life. She spent her days clutching a pillow, murmuring to herself, telling everyone, "I'm Ethan's girlfriend. He's waiting for me to take him home." No one knew what previous life she spoke of. Everyone thought she was lovesick mad. Dylan later went to prison after being involved in a gang fight and completely vanished into the crowd. Lucas became the second in command of my company, worth billions, with a happy family. Everything seemed to have settled. One morning, I stood in my office at the top of the city, looking down at the traffic bustling below. My phone rang. It's an unfamiliar number. I answered, and on the other end of the line came a familiar, sardonic male voice. "Ethan, or should I call you Player 001? My pupils constricted sharply. "Long time no see. I didn't expect you'd actually clear this beginner dungeon." The voice on the other end of the line carried a smile. "But do you think it's over? Don't forget, the script Chasing Your Wife. Cremation Ground has a hidden ending." "What do you mean?" My voice cooled. "It means you think you're the player who was reborn, but have you considered that the Sophia you drove mad might be the same? She was merely an NPC who awakened memories of a past life, but was judged a mission failure by the system. And you are the victor who successfully seized her rebirth opportunity. Now, the main quest is over. The hidden quest begins, redemption. Go to the psychiatric hospital where you died in your past life. Find her. In the room where you died. This world. The final truth is hidden." The call was disconnected. I stood by the window, motionless for a long time. The sunlight outside the window was blinding, but my face was shrouded in gloom.